Hey, good evening. Thanks for joining us on the Political Deep Dive this evening. My name is David Valente, and I really appreciate everyone joining us this evening. Uh, I am a big proponent of highlighting the groups that are seeking to change either the tone of discussion in American politics or change the dynamic between the people and the people that claim to govern over them, to restore the balance. And the guests that I have this week are Josh Eckel and Justin Cornett. And let me bring those guys on. They're with For All Tennessee. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us, David.
Thanks. So For All Tennessee seeks to correct the imbalance between the people and the people that govern them. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Joshua, Joshua Eckel, or Eckel, I'm sorry.
You got it right. Yeah, Eckel. Correct.
Cool. There we go. Joshua Eckel, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Sure, man. So I'm the former state chair of the Libertarian Party of Tennessee. In my day job, I'm a corporate marketing executive. I've, with this guy, probably partnered with him on a variety of liberty projects in Tennessee, both locally and statewide for the last 8 or 9 years. The executive director of For All as of last month when we were founded.
Awesome. Congratulations. Justin Cornett, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Justin Cornett. I got a sales background. I ran the legislative committee for the state Libertarian Party here in Tennessee. Did some work with the Koch brothers as a professional paid grassroots lobbyist / organizer or lobbyist. With Josh back in Knoxville, together we built a really big Libertarian Party affiliate, hung around for a few years. We had 60 to 80 people every month, and we're able to make a lot of friendships in that time with our speakers, and kind of led us to this position that we're in now.
Fantastic. This show is interactive, so those of you joining us online, either in Facebook or on YouTube, feel free to drop us a line if you have any questions about For All Tennessee or the work that they're doing, and we'll be happy to discuss them on the air. So let's talk about what is For All Tennessee. What do you guys see?
Go ahead.
So in the high level, For All Tennessee is a democratized 501c4 that was established to correct the imbalance between the people and their government. So to be more specific, our mission is mobilizing Tennesseans around policy that empowers people and limits government. We have a variety of areas that we're focusing on legislatively this year, but I think there's kind of 3 key things that make us different than everyone else in the space. So, the first thing, and feel free to chime in, Cornette, if you want to take the lead here. But the first thing is that as a 501c4, our members come first. So when I'm sure you've interacted with nonprofits in the past, especially political nonprofits. A lot of the times they're steered by big donors or outside interests, and
they want you to give your money to them, and then they want to set their agenda out of your dollars.
Right. So in this, we kind of reverse that model. So our members all have equal votes. They drive our legislative agenda every year in conjunction with our advisory committee, and really kind of push the organization from the ground and set our foundation. Right. The second thing that we do that I think makes us different, David, is our intention of crowdsourcing all of our policy. So while our members really kind of drive everything, we're always constantly polling our members. Every year we have a vote that we send out to them for the legislative agenda. They set the tone. And then the big one is that we focus only on issues and not political campaigns. And in the last 25 years, we've been bombarded by out of control political personalities, and we don't believe that's really resulted in any positive change. So we want to unite people on issues.
And in order to foster that uniting people on issues, we have it set up where we're trying to encourage people to give to the issue that they are interested in, as opposed to any issue that they might not want their dollars to go to. So another one of the large problems with a nonprofit in this space is you often find people that are like, well, I really like that they're doing this, but they're also doing this, and I just can't give them my money. We're trying to do it a little differently and say, if you give money to this issue, we're going to use that money for that issue. And you can rest assured that your dollars aren't going to fund other efforts in the organization.
And that's the elevator pitch, David. That's the high level.
Awesome. So you had three keys that you guys did: organize, educate, and lobby.
Yep.
So talk to us about your organizing efforts. What are you looking to do with those?
Yeah, you want to take a lead on this?
Sure. I mean, the idea is we want to do the Bernie model on this in a lot of different ways and not just fundraising. We want to have the ability to walk into a legislator's office and say, 75% of your district agrees with us on this particular issue. Is there any chance that we can get you to change your mind on this piece? You know what I'm saying? In the short run, what we're going to do is try to establish these relationships with the legislators where we're matter of fact. They know who we're going to be when we walk in. We're not going to beat them up. At the same time, we are going to tell everybody what they're doing so they can get beat up if they need to.
Yeah, and to that end, David, as it pertains to organizing, what we want to do, the lobbying, the education, those are focus areas, but the actual grassroots element is what drives the entire organization.
Right.
We want to create a bank of citizen lobbyists, and these are people that care about their communities, care about their issues, and are showing up without a financial incentive to be involved in the political process in Nashville. And so, as Justin touched on, he's a former lobbyist for the Koch network. He spent a lot of time doing this tactically. And so our team, our legislative ops team, kind of takes people alongside, setting up ride-along constituent meetings. They get them involved in the legislative process. And that's not even to mention local advocacy, building coalitions in their area on issues.
Calls to action
Right.
on different things where we're doing phone calls and emails and all that good
All
stuff.
the day-to-day
report card.
right.
All
the day-to-day political operations that go to get a bill passed, making a phone call or sending an email, those are really a lot more critical than you think. So we try to organize people around that. I don't know if you want to get into education and lobbying, but we could touch on that too. We kind of touched on lobbying a little bit.
Let's go ahead and talk about what kind of educational efforts you guys do.
Yeah, so we see our legislative platform as not only an opportunity for change, but we see it as an opportunity for education. So what we want to do is talk to people about issues that we believe really work to correct the imbalance, and that entails us doing social content. That entails us having meetings. We'll go out and talk to any group like yourself, David. We'll come out on a podcast, or we'll come out to local meetings and kind of educate people on the key issues that we're focused on. And again, building awareness on some of these issues, because a lot of the opportunities to correct the imbalance between people and their government are policies that are not necessarily like publicly known or like super sexy or flashy. So building awareness on some of those things.
We feel like, the constituents of the two parties are much more likely to cross over the aisle on a particular issue, particularly if it has something to do with empowering a person or limiting government. If the legislators won't move on it, without knowing what their constituents think, we hope to be a place where we catch everybody that's upset about these issues and wants these things passed. I mean, nobody thinks that it's okay for police to take stuff from people without charging them ever.
With the
that's obviously a bad thing on its face. You know what I mean? We're not trying to go out there and be divisive. We're not trying to go out there and be partisan. We're trying to go out there and be fair and try to improve the climate for liberty in this state.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the lobbying then. I know that you guys have had some success with some bills getting co-sponsored. Go ahead and talk about some of the bills you guys have floating.
Yeah, I'll give them the high level. You give them the details. How about that? Does that work?
That's fair enough.
So there's 3 focus areas, and I'll let Justin actually get into the 8 pieces of legislation that we're focused on. But right now we're focused on ballot access reform, free and equal elections in Tennessee. We're focused on protecting small business from government overreach, and we're focused on criminal justice reform. And as I said, there are 8 bills. I'll let him give you the play-by-play on those.
Yeah, it's not as complicated as you might think, because 4 of those bills relate to civil asset forfeiture. So Tennessee has pretty difficult civil asset forfeiture laws in comparison to the other states. A few years back, I can't remember the organization, but they gave us a D versus the rest of the country. So there's quite a bit of room for improvement is the bottom line. So we have 4 different bills on civil asset forfeiture. We have HB 409, which is a reporting bill, because currently the state of Tennessee confiscates through civil forfeiture somewhere between $15 and $18 million a year on average. And we don't know how much, if any of that, is eventually tied to a criminal conviction, which would go a long way to telling us what if we have a problem or to what extent we have a problem here in Tennessee. So we feel like this is just a responsible bill, and that generally speaking, we're not going to meet a whole bunch of resistance from it, unless, of course, there's somebody in the Department of Safety that really doesn't want this bill to go through. And that could change the dynamic. But as of right now, it looks like we're on ice skates with this one, and it should get through. There's another bill that removes a bond associated with a challenge to a civil forfeiture. So currently, if you are your stuff is taken because they think that you're going to use it in a bad way, but they never bother to charge you or anything with it. If you want to challenge and go and get your stuff back, you have to pay $350 up front to start the process. So the average seizure in the state of Tennessee is in the $2,200 to $2,600 range. And a lot of those seizures are cars. And you could probably imagine that if you are driving a car that's worth $2,200 to $2,600, that $350 is at least most of rent. It's a challenge that people that haven't been charged with a crime shouldn't have to face.
Not to mention they have to drive themselves to the court to pay the bonds, so they don't have a car anymore.
No, that is another thing about it. There's only 5 places in the state that you can go to deal with this, and some of them are hours away from our more remote locations. It's definitely a challenge. And it doesn't make sense to make somebody pay $350 to try to get stuff back that you didn't charge them a crime for having. Right.
That's the second bill.
Right. There's a bill that currently the state of Tennessee caps attorney's fees that they would reimburse at $3,000. Lots of these cases take years. $3,000 obviously doesn't make a dent. It could
be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, it legitimately could. And in an effort, again, to get back an average seizure of $2,200 to $2,600.
Right.
So it makes it cost prohibitive. If they can just drag it out, they can't afford the lawyer, and it doesn't make sense. So if you get rid of the attorney's fees cap, theoretically the opposite happens. Whoever forfeits the property, whatever agency forfeits the property, has to reimburse the attorney's fees. So if they are all of a sudden finding themselves in a situation where those attorney's fees are uncapped, these procedures are going to speed up dramatically. I can assure you of that. And it just makes sense because, again, if you have not been charged with a crime, but your property has been taken, then you should be able to get your property back without any cost to you.
Exactly.
You know what I
mean? That doesn't make sense to me. It would make sense to me that you remove that cap, then it actually would lessen the chance that they do something like civil forfeiture on you.
Absolutely,
it does, because it doesn't make it as profitable.
Exactly.
Right now, all they got to do is stall until it becomes an opportunity cost thing. You got $3,000 in legal fees, but your car's only worth $2,500.
Yeah,
just forget it. Let's just get out. It's definitely a perverse incentive. Hopefully we can get this one through too. And it does look pretty good to get this one through. Those first 3 civil asset forfeiture bills all look pretty good. We do have a criminal conviction bill, which would require that before a civil forfeiture could be done, it would have to be over a certain dollar amount to kind of eliminate these $2,000 forfeitures that are obviously not crippling the cartel.
Yeah.
That one, while it makes sense and it is, basic American philosophy, for whatever reason, we have trouble getting that one through, and we don't really expect that one to go super duper far. But
we're still hustling.
We are still hustling it. We will get co-sponsors on it. We will have Tennessee's a weird state. Like the further east you go, the more conservative these guys get, it seems. And there's a contingent of people that will absolutely support this bill. I know I've had personal conversations with a lot of these guys that would like to do away with civil asset forfeiture in its entirety, and they've said that to me with with their own lips and no different terms. So, but a criminal conviction, it's going to be tough to get that one through. It's just the nature of the beast. So.
But that's a civil forfeiture. So those are 4 bills on civil forfeiture. I'll talk about ballot access if you're okay with that. It's kind of my cup of tea. So we're also, anyway. This is a big opportunity for reform too, David. So in Tennessee, if you want to run as a minor party, let's say it's a Patriot Party or Green Party or Libertarian Party, whatever you are, if you want to run as a Republican, Democrat, or Independent, you got to get 25 signatures. If you want to run as any of those minor parties I mentioned, you got to get 56,082 signatures. So, but what that does is
the raw number.
Say it again.
Is that the raw number?
That's the raw number.
Raw
so
number.
You have to multiply that by
85, 90.
Yeah.
So if you're really going to be serious about it, you probably got to get closer to 80. So, but that's a whole nother story.
At least 80.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is bring our ballot access laws in line with the rest of the country. So, I mean, I think Tennessee is one of the top 4 hardest states, and we're on par with Texas and California in signature totals needed, and they have like 5 times our population. So we want to take that signature threshold. Right now, it's 2.5% of the votes in the last gubernatorial race. We want to bring that down to 0.5, which makes it closer to 11,000 signatures. And then we also want to fix retention. In Tennessee, retention for minor parties is absolutely broken. You have to get access, and then within a 4-year window, you have to run a candidate for Senate, governor, or president, and you have to get 5% of the vote statewide. If you don't get 5% of the vote statewide, you immediately have to start again. 80,000 signatures, get working. So what we want to do is change it to not only 0.5% of the votes needed, so 12,000 signatures, but on retention, we're going to bring close to a percent, 1% rather than 5%.
Which I might add, and it's fair to say there have been people that have raised these concerns before. It doesn't really help third parties historically, and it's true. 1% is a really high threshold for any third party to get right now. It hasn't happened in Tennessee in maybe 20 years.
Well, it happened in 2016, but before that, you're right.
Yeah. But sorry, before Gary, Joe didn't get there.
Right.
Kanye West didn't get there. So, all those people would have been straight back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and so we're having a lot of success with this, David. I mean, we've got Representative Lafferty, Calfee, Wright, Campbell, Faison, Hodges, McKenzie, Leatherwood. These are all people that have signed onto the bill or co-sponsored the bill within a 2-week period, and we're just getting started. So that one's a pretty exciting piece of legislation.
The reality on that one is last year we ran the exact same bill, and I probably had 25 Republican co-sponsors on the bill, and the tacit support of the Democrat majority leader. So it would have gotten through on a House floor vote.
Yep, and there are 3 more bills, and then we're done with a high level, David. I know we're getting a little granular.
That's fine. That's all good.
So on criminal. So on criminal justice reform, I'll give you the floor on fully informed juries.
Jury nullification. So I think everybody in this audience is probably going to know what jury nullification is. No need to really do a deep dive on it. It's one of those things that we don't expect to get through because nobody knows what it is, and they're not going to pass something that they don't know what it is. But it allows us to start the conversation about it. And we believe that it doesn't matter what group we get in front of, if they're Democratic Socialists or they're gun people or they're, young Republicans or Libertarians. It doesn't matter who we get in front of. If we explain what jury nullification is, they're going to support jury nullification legislation. The idea here is to have the conversation, and we've gotten pretty good feedback out of the House so far. Again, I don't expect it to go anywhere. Well, what the bill does, the only thing the bill does is require a judge to inform the jury of their right to nullification if a defense attorney asks for it. So it might affect 5 or 10 cases in the statewide on a regular basis. It's the most minor pinprick that we could go for and have the conversation and make it seem realistic. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
the last two.
The last ones we're looking at, everybody knows somebody that owns a small business that was either really negatively impacted by the shutdowns of last spring or was ended up losing their business altogether.
In Tennessee, there were almost 1,500 small businesses that were closed permanently because of COVID shutdown.
Yeah, so it's been bad. So we're looking at some piece of legislation that would prevent the state from having that arbitrary power. There are 2 bills in particular particular we're looking at. One would prevent the state from labeling businesses as essential or non-essential, which is good in theory, but to me, you could just say, well, we're going to close bars, and get around that. So, I mean, it's good, but there's improvements that can be made. And then there's another one that would prevent police from being used to enforce any shutdown, any restriction of travel, or any restriction of freedom of assembly. Much stronger language, much stronger bill, probably because of that has less likelihood of passage.
Sure.
Yep. And so that's the crux of our agenda right now, David. There is a, we're going to be launching in the next week a landing page that kind of gives a little bit more details on each bill and each bill number. But in the meantime, it's all over social. As we get our co-sponsors, as we continue to get support on this, we're going to keep everyone in the loop on it. So
yeah, absolutely. So we got a question from the audience, Eric Rodsip, who's also on the LNC with me.
What's up, Eric?
So, and you guys have pretty much addressed a lot of this. What do you see as achievable goals in 2021?
Yeah.
I
mean,
civil asset forfeiture, protection of small business. We think we will get at least 2 of the 4 civil asset forfeitures. We got a legitimate shot at getting 3. On the ballot access bill, I'm relatively certain I can get it to a House floor vote. The Senate's going to be much trickier, and we will get something on protecting small businesses. What form that inevitably looks like, we're not exactly sure yet. So that's what I would say we will get done this year.
Awesome.
Yep.
So let's talk about, do you guys envision this going beyond Tennessee?
God, yes.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what we're trying to do in the first year is keep our focus local. And the reason that is because we have a very strong vision for the culture of the organization and kind of making sure that it stays true. We don't want to scale too fast, but we want to prove the model here in Tennessee, at least through the end of this year. And then we've already had many people approach us about starting state affiliates across the country. And the way that we structured the organization from a legal perspective allows us to do that. So we do have an intention to make that pivot within the first 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, basically, as soon as we can fund it and find the people that share the vision and understand the culture and value it for the reasons that we value it, we want 50 state chapters. We want 4 All America. And who knows? We might even get to 4 All Memphis, where we're talking about zoning laws and ranked choice voting.
Yeah, that's our plan: is to approve the model here first, make sure we keep our culture intact, and then scale. And that's kind of where we're at with it.
Excellent. So you touched on it a little bit earlier. How do you crowdsource policy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So
the data guy.
So the way that we do it is it's actually pretty simple. It's not that complicated. We have every year we approach our members with a slew of policy proposals. So our advisory committee verifies and approves these policy proposals. They put it together. It's going to be a packet of 15 to 20 pieces of legislation, and then they do it. That's one element. That's how they define our legislative agenda.
No, that's perfect. I was just going to say, you're leaving out that those things, a lot of those things will end up being brought to us.
Absolutely.
We are looking at picking up another bill that is about eminent domain regarding blighted properties. Provided that the advisory board signs off on it, we'll probably pick this up.
Yeah, we're agile. So if our members bring something to us, we run it through our process, and our process is advisory committee signs off on it to make it sure it's true to the culture and the mission statement, and then the members kind of have that final vote to make sure that we're driving it. That goes on every day, all the time. So, I mean, we have people contacting us on a regular basis saying, hey, what do you think about working this bill? What do you think about working that bill? We're taking that bill, we're looking at the contents of it, making sure it's a good piece of legislation, asking our advisors, and then we're coming back to our entire membership and saying, are you guys willing to work this? And that's one element too, David, because there's 2 kind of distinctions here. If you give $60 a year, and we're about to launch a very clear membership program within the next 2 weeks, we're like 30 days into this experiment, so we're still getting the foundation laid. But if you want to donate to the org, you could do that. You'll be a member. You'll be included in those votes. If you want to just say, hey, I am not, like, let's say you're completely politically on the other side of the spectrum, you don't agree with half the things we do, we also have it set up that you could donate straight to the issues that you care about. So if you really just are very passionate about criminal justice reform and you don't want to touch the small business, you don't want to touch the ballot access stuff, you could donate straight to that issue, and that goes into a political action fund that is completely insulated from the rest of the organization, that is only used
toward that issue,
to drive that issue and to push that.
If that means buying data in a district in order to move a particular legislator, that's what we'll do. Or sending out mailers, or doing advertising, paying additional lobbyists, paying for a flight to get somebody come down to testify in subcommittee, whatever it might be. But it'll be used to that issue.
Yeah, so there's kind of two pathways. You could become a member, help the whole org, and then we're going to let you have your voice heard every year when we put this agenda together and as we go throughout the year. Or if you just don't care about the org, you just care about the issues, we have a pathway for you there too. So that's kind of the crux of it.
That's awesome. It sounds very innovative. I haven't heard this kind of organization before.
Right? That's exactly what we thought. We really think that we stumbled onto something that could be a genuine difference maker that is different than anything else that you see in this space.
And you know what inspired me to do it, or really what inspired I think both of us to do it, is we spent a lot of time in the political space for the last 10 years in Tennessee. We've interacted with organizations from all across the spectrum, especially 501c4s. Oftentimes, I remember giving money to a specific 501c4 that'll remain nameless, just to find out that the next year they took that money and donated it to a large prominent Republican candidate. I mean, I'm a libertarian. I'm a third party guy. I don't want my money going to support partisan candidates. That's not my thing. And so we were sitting there thinking about it. Like, what if we could allow our members not only to have a voice, but segment their money out so they know it's protected and it's only going to be used to fight what they care for. That's why we created For All. I mean, that's really the basis.
And it's crucial to note on top of that when we did this, we come from a libertarian background. Our philosophies are there. But the reality is everybody on the left likes things that are freedom oriented, decriminalization of marijuana, different money bail on misdemeanors, qualified immunity. I mean, we can go for days on things that these guys agree on, and there's a lot of people on the right that agree with those issues too. And on the right, there's plenty of issues, guns and spying on people and all kinds of different things that the big brother kind of stuff that the right is afraid of. So, I mean, we can work together on these things because a lot of times both sides of the aisle's constituents think these are great ideas. I mean, we've gotten good reception from the widest range of
as far as
organizations,
Trump supporters to Democratic socialists,
as far as you can go on both sides.
And to kind of add to that, we know that partisan politics mostly exists to divide people. I mean, the nature of the red team, the blue team is created to kind of keep people in their political buckets, not working across the aisle, because it helps them win elections. And so we want to get rid of that dynamic. And let's say, why can't we just unify people on the issues that we agree on? And when it comes to like some of these very basic things like civil forfeiture, you can go to a Democratic socialist and you go to a Trump supporter and tell them about civil forfeiture, and they will both say that is an abomination. So why aren't we working together on these things? And that's the core. We want to build those bridges. We want to stop breaking those things down. We want to get away from the partisan mess, and we want to unite people around issues and not personalities and partisanship.
Yeah, if we can do this right, we can really limit the impact of personality and culture associated with politicians and their parties.
Yep,
exactly. A
lot of alliteration.
That's one of the big things is that we have really treated politics like spy versus spy. I mean, it's such a sad thing that there are so many issues that. In my work as state chair of the Libertarian Party of West Virginia, that I've gone to legislators that people have told me, "Oh, you shouldn't work with them. They're a Democrat. They're
right,
exactly
AOC light, or they're this or they're that." And I've worked with them so well. On the other side, I work with some people on the right side so well because there are issues that you can identify. And if you're willing to work with somebody on those sides, on those issues that you identify with, you're going to have an ally in those issues, and you're going to be able to move those forward.
Can I give a John Doe real quick?
Go
Real quick, just to give you an example. There's an extreme left and extreme right in every group, and the Tennessee legislature, House of Representatives, is no different. And I can identify, which I won't name names, but somebody on the far left and somebody on the far right. And they both agree on all but one of our issues. The Democrat doesn't necessarily think that the state shouldn't have the ability to shut down businesses if it's going to keep people alive. And their goal is to keep people alive. I disagree with the process, but they're not bad people for thinking that. And it's okay for them to have that position. Yeah. And then you've got a guy on the other side of the aisle. His one issue is the ballot access. And he straight leveled with me and told me that he was a partisan person. And I'm like, that's fine. You're allowed to have that opinion. It's not mine.
Overlap with the others.
Yeah, every single one of he's co-sponsoring like 3 of the 4 other bills.
So Joe Bishop Henchman, the chair of the LNC, said something, and I think it's extremely relevant. He said, libertarians understand the right in a way the left never will, and they understand the left in a way the right never will. And I think that couldn't be more true. And while we're not a partisan libertarian organization, we want to work with everybody. I do believe are approaching this from a unique perspective, because we can, as third party independent guys, see both sides of the argument, and it's hard. It's not. I don't see many organizations doing that right now.
And I mean, the reality is everything has to fit inside the mission statement, and the mission statement is mobilizing people to promote policy that empowers people or limits government. Name a piece of policy that libertarians agree with that doesn't empower people and limit government. Anyone, just name one.
You can't.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's perfect, because we can get everybody together on these issues, and we can genuinely get to work on advancing people, freedom in the state and other states. If we can get this thing off the ground here, imagine a world where we've got Tennessee's a state that's got 6.6 million people. I'm ballparking, 1.5 million, maybe 2 million that vote. Imagine if we've got 800,000 people that are on our Facebook page and participate in our organization. Imagine what that means when we walk into a legislator's office at the very beginning of session and say, these are the 14 bills that we are trying to get done this year. How do you feel about those? Yeah. That's power.
Powerful. Yeah. Yeah. Just a reminder, if you are out watching the show online, feel free to drop us a question, and we'll be happy to discuss it on the air. So, Justin, you are the lobbying guy.
Yes, sir.
In West Virginia this year, we're not able to go to the legislature. That you have to register ahead of time if you're going to testify on a bill.
Yeah.
They're not doing a whole lot. How's it going in Tennessee?
It's similar here. It was pretty much the exact same until last week. This past week, the Speaker of the House relaxed the rules on the 3 floors of the Cordell Hull building that housed the House of Representatives. So if you are a registered lobbyist, which, by the way, I am, because you have to, if you go more than 10 times, it's a trigger. So I bit the bullet and paid the $160 to register as a lobbyist. But now I can go between floors, and I don't have to have the meetings, and I can pop my head into offices and things like that on the House floors. On the Senate floors, I have to have a meeting. I've got to check in every single time, all that good stuff. So
yeah, and my concern, David, this is the way it is across the country right now. Yeah, I don't know how West Virginia was before the pandemic, but at least in Tennessee, you could just walk your butt right in at any time, and you could poke your head in. That's the way it should be. If this trend of kind of keeping people out continues beyond this year, I mean, it's not a good thing. You could bet that we'll be fighting that on behalf of all Tennesseans, because the access is so key. We've seen how hard it is to do effective lobbying when you're locked out like that. Yeah. And the Senate has been extremely challenging, but we've been successful in spite of that. It just takes a lot more work.
Yeah. If you're going to represent us, you got to be able to hear us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that we've had an issue with, is that, just to, you can have a day at the Capitol, but you have to stay outside. You can't go in the building.
Yeah, I don't know if they're doing days on the Hill here either. The last word I heard was they weren't, but that was before the Speaker of the House loosened the rules. So I'm not sure if that was part of it or not. I would imagine it probably wasn't.
So tell me a little bit about the legislature in Tennessee. Is it a year-round legislature, or is it a part-time legislature?
No, starts second Tuesday in January every year is when session convenes, and it usually runs until probably early to mid-April, maybe a little bit later if it's a fuller slate or if there are extenuating circumstances.
Okay. Josh, you just ended your term as chair of the Libertarian Party of Tennessee. Care to reflect on your time as chair and your success?
I'm going to give you the spotlight on this one.
I mean, honestly, I think the next board's going to be. I'm extremely excited to see the next board, so I'm very excited that Dave got in there, and I'm loving to see that Ken is staying on the board, and a couple of Dave Tyler and Marcus Baker are awesome activists, so I'm glad to see they're in those positions. I think we talked about this in the pre-show, David. I mean, the reason I didn't run for re-election was because as somebody who's as politically involved as I am, my primary goal is to try to make an impact and change policy for in a real way. And the LP is still very marginalized. They're still kind of on the fringes. They have a lot of operational stuff to get control of. We have a ballot access reform that we really have to get passed before we can be effective. And so we're working, at least internally, I wanted to make a pivot. I wanted to focus wholly on seeing how we could change policy, how we can engage and mobilize libertarians around actual, tangible, possible legislative fixes. And so that's why I didn't run again, but I'm extremely excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know if you'd say it, but I'll say it. This organization, if you say empower people to Democrats, they want to do that. You've got their ears. And if you say limit government to Republicans, you got their ears. And because you don't say the word libertarian, people will be your friend. I mean, it's really as simple as that. We can build gigantic coalitions of people just because we don't say the word libertarian.
It's sad, but it is technically true.
It's true, and it's because also we're even though we're not big, we're competition, and we're
yeah, absolutely. And we don't want to
votes.
Right. And then with For All, we don't even want to be competition. I mean, that's not our goal. We're not trying to unseat anybody. We're just trying to get people to work together. Right. A party is a different mechanism. You got to get people elected. You play that political game. We want to get into the issue, the focus on building bridges. So.
Any chance you've read Washington's farewell address, Mr. Valente?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So that big section where he talks about party?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if we could just find a way around that by getting people together in a marketplace of ideas designed to empower people or limit government, and they self-governed through that system. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing?
It would be. Absolutely.
I'm all about it. I mean, that's what we're trying to make. That's what we're trying to do. Sure. Imagine a nationwide network that was tapped into the federal government as well. I mean, imagine having a third of every voter in the nation on board. I mean, wow. You could you set the agenda. Everything, nothing else matters.
Yeah. So 10 years from now, where do you foresee this?
10 years from now, we do hope that we have at least a handful of state affiliates. I hope that we could say and point to at least a dozen or more of real reform that we've passed. We want to make sure we have a solid bank of donors and a solid base of volunteers and activists that can continue to help us put pressure and make an impact. We see a national vision for this organization. We see going to 50 state affiliates and maybe lobbying in DC. That's definitely something we want to do. But right now we're trying to make sure we do the day to day.
Yeah.
And there is a storm going on.
Sorry,
so
scared the dogs.
The thunder is. I'm sure it's going the same way for you in Virginia there.
Yeah. We're getting lots of rain up here, so it's not been thundering, but
we just got a flash flood alert while we were on the phone with you. So let's hope my house.
We had a tornado watch earlier.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yeah, so if you guys need to go, that's fine.
No, we're good. We're good.
I'll let you know if the power goes out. Then we need to go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
we're dedicated.
So. You guys in Tennessee don't have a state income tax, is that correct?
We do not. You should come and live with us.
Well, we're trying to do the same thing in West Virginia. So our governor proposed ending the state income tax, but he's proposing to do that through raising other income or other taxes. So
yeah.
increase in a soda tax, increase in local sales tax.
You have a soda tax?
What they're proposing is like 5 cents a can or something like that. It's not stopping me at all. So we're good to go on that. But what would you say to West Virginia? How could we do it better than what Tennessee did?
Great question.
I mean, get rid of it all at once instead of bickering about other programs that are technically that technically take income from people at the state level. There are lots of those programs: inheritance taxes, stock taxes, things like that. So get rid of it all at once so that the argument's over and you can move on to other issues. That would be my biggest advice. We haven't had a state income tax for, like forever, but we've been trying to get rid of. We just got rid of the last remnant of an actual income tax called the Hall tax, which was an inheritance tax that was, it paid at death on income. It just keeps people bickering and arguing over something that should have been done at the same time.
Yeah, what we're doing in West Virginia is, at least the proposal is doing for low income taxpayers 50% this year, and then the other 50% in 3 years.
Gotcha.
And
I mean,
high income is 30% or 33% all 3 years.
Right. I mean, however you do it is going to be the right way to do it. The state's going to have to adjust, and spending is our biggest problem in every single government, whether it's city, county, state, or federal. Every single government spending is the biggest problem. So it's going to take some adjusting to figure out how to cover whatever pork they have to cover and figure out what pork they can cut. It's okay. I would say it's okay if they take their sweet time doing it, as long as they get it right and it goes away.
I mean, the fact that we don't have an income tax in Tennessee has made us one of the top states that people have moved to the last couple of years. We are growing like crazy due to our consumption-based tax approach. It has had a massively positive economic impact on the state. And we know the challenges that West Virginia has from a growth perspective. They could do a lot, man, if they would just get rid of it.
I mean, you want to draw business in, get rid of the freaking tax. Tennessee has these little boards that go around and work for cities and counties in the state and cut deals with Amazon to bring X amount of jobs here, and they don't have to pay taxes for years. Just get rid of the tax and find a way to make it up in another place that's not a food tax or a gas tax, and you'll see business come to your state so fast, and your cities grow and blossom and everything else. I mean, it's all about that climate.
We do that in West Virginia. We have these, our local county boards will cut all these tax deals to businesses to bring in, Rockwell or another, large business, but they leave as soon as that tax deal goes up, because the tax deals are always time limited. Right. If you remove the tax, you remove the ultimate barrier that will end up driving that business back out of your state.
Right. Yeah. You're just delaying the speed bump that they're trying to get around in the first place, and they're going to try again. And if they don't, they'll find somebody that'll let them. And you got to understand that. And
it's also creating two types of businesses: the ones that are connected to keep that tax break, and the ones that aren't, that are generally the local ones that pay the majority of your taxes anyway.
Picking winners and losers for sure. It's the local guys that these guys, they're not paying property taxes on their piece of property that most of it was donated to their company so that they would come and build a factory there or something. It's homeowners and small businesses that are paying in this state. Most of the property taxes go toward education in this state. So, the businesses aren't helping out with that. They're not paying their fair share, which I hate that freaking term, but I mean, there's so many realities about it. It's not even funny. The bottom line is nobody should be paying taxes. I mean, let's do something fee-based. Yeah, I mean, we need to get rid of all of it for everybody as much as we possibly can. And it goes right back to spending being the biggest issue that every government has.
Absolutely. That's it with us. And with West Virginia, they have not. I think they did maybe $500,000 in cuts is what they're proposing, and I'm like, how's this going to work if you're removing all this revenue, but you're not going to do any spending cutting? So
it's like the federal government, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
What I want to know is if they could print money to bail us out of a crisis, and why are we paying taxes to begin with? If there's no end to the rate of inflation,
exactly. Yeah.
What's the point? There's really no.
I'm just waiting for those, $10 billion notes to be issued. By
yeah, exactly. $1 trillion coin or whatever.
The question is, whose face would they put on that?
Right.
Keynes.
Probably, yes, Keynes. Yeah. Oh, actually, I've got some stamps from Weimar, Germany, which are had like billions of dollars. They couldn't print stamps fast enough, so all they did was just like print over an old stamp with the new value. It's kind of interesting to see how fast things were going bad there. It's
like the opposite of what your Bitcoin account looks like it's worth, which is like preceded by 9 zeros.
Slides right down. Yeah. So tell me about who else is involved in your organization.
Yeah, I can tell you. So I don't know if you're familiar with the lovely and beautiful Claire Ball. Have you met or interacted with her yet?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, she's actually former comptroller candidate in Illinois. She ran with Cash Jackson in 2018. She's She's a CPA. She actually just moved to Nashville 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And so she is still getting her bearings in the legislature, but she is by far a financial wizard or wizardress, whatever the version of that is.
Witch.
Exactly.
Witch and wizard. Yeah. She's a financial witch.
Exactly. Seriously, she's really amazing. She's helping us keep track of that stuff. She's our third board member, and nothing that we do gets to be approved unless she also gives her stamp of approval. On our advisory committee, we have elected officials from across the state. We've got Carthage City Councilor Cole Ebel, Clarksville City Councilor Tricia Butler, Montgomery County Commissioner Joshua Beal, former Wilson County Commissioner Heather Scott, former LPT and chair entrepreneur Tom Arnold. We have a bunch and more people that are considering joining in the near future.
Hopefully we're talking to a couple PhDs and a judge that was here from Nashville that's of national prominence, and trying to get people on both sides of the spectrum and show that, if you've got good issues, good people can come together to work on good things, even if they disagree broadly over the spectrum. So, it's worked out really well so far, man. I one of my favorite stories about doing this and talking about this is, I went to an LP meeting in Memphis, and I talked to a Democratic socialist there who was fully supportive of what we were doing on the organization, loved all the issues that we were working on, with, again, the exception of the small business thing, and was trying to coordinate with us and share stuff and all that good stuff. And, we exchanged information. We went on about our day. The very next morning, I got up to a text message from somebody that is a personal friend of mine that would be the one starting the Patriot Party in Tennessee if it was going to start, the prominent figure that would be doing it. And they were like, what is this organization? I looked over it and I love what they're doing. And I was like, it's fun. So, I mean, in a 12-hour span, it had a DSA and the exact opposite on the other end of the spectrum just tell me that they love this. And I feel like that's the gimmick for us. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody can think of something that the government is doing that it shouldn't be doing, or that they should be able to do something that they can't currently do. Everybody can come up with something that fits in that wheelhouse. And all we want is your ideas, and whichever one everybody else wants us to work, that's the ones we want to do.
So I got your website up. It's foralltn.org.
Yeah.
Scrolling down at the bottom. Lovely website.
Josh did it. He did really good work on it.
Yeah. Really
really good work.
And got some good updates on your 350 bond work and everything like that. So, and the legislative update. So I encourage everyone to go ahead and take a look out there for it.
Yeah, and you can find us on Twitter at 4All Tennessee, or I'm sorry, on Facebook at 4All Tennessee, and at 4All TN on Twitter. We're also on LinkedIn. I think we're going to be getting on MeWe soon. But
and we've got a couple of updates that'll be coming to the website soon. So if you look at it now, look at it again in a week or two, and it'll have more information on it on a lot of different things.
Right, you can find
numbers and stuff like that.
Right, you can find the case studies in there, but we're going to make sure that we release a comprehensive list of all the legislation we're working on in the near future, not just through the blog post. We're going to actually put a dedicated landing page there to make it easy for people to kind of navigate and track who's involved in which piece of legislation so that they can easily take action.
Yep.
So in the remaining couple of minutes we've got, anything else you guys want to talk about?
I think we covered it all, David. You're very, very thorough. No, I mean, I would ask your listeners that if you're interested in learning more, we very much need your financial support if you're out of state. If you check us out at 4LTN, our donor pledge is there, 4LTN.org/donate. I'd urge you to help us out there. If you're in the state of Tennessee, or if you want to help influence Tennessee politics, you can go to the Take Action page, sign up to be a volunteer. We've got a Discord channel. We've got a private Facebook group. We're always sending out calls to actions for our volunteers. And if you just want to kind of watch from a distance and see how we progress, you can sign up there too, get the mailing list updates, and we'll make sure you're plugged in and in the loop.
Yeah, and if we did a really good job, again, we want to bring this to your state. And let me tell you something: if we can raise, if something were to go crazy right now, we were to be able to raise, $1 million over the next 6 months, we're going to start another chapter. We're going to start some other chapters because that's the resources to do it. So, I mean, I get that you might be in West Virginia listening to this, and we're in Tennessee, and it's not going to really affect you, but it is. If we can get this off the ground here, it's going to affect everybody, and in a really positive way. So, if you can help out, please help out.
Absolutely, I'm definitely interested. I think the future of politics is more this than
No, I agree. Yeah,
I can't believe that we were the first ones to think of crowdsourcing this stuff. I mean, I genuinely can't.
Well, and being able to silo your donations, into a specific thing. If you don't like what the other things that we're doing, silo it into this, and we'll move that forward.
That's it.
I think that is it. This is really the future of politics, the future of advocacy for common people, rather than relying on the politically connected, amplifying your voices in an organization.
Yeah.
You're speaking our language, man. That's the crux of what we're chasing.
So. I'm glad that our explanation made sure that you understood the core of it, because you just recited the core of it. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So. Hey, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Thanks to everyone who joined us online. Didn't get a whole lot of questions, but we do see quite a few people joined us.
Yeah.
Chad, Christine, Brian, Craig, Alexander, Doug, Eric. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Justin. I wish you all the success in the world, and hopefully I can be there when we started up in West Virginia.
Sounds good, David.
Hope so, David.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
everybody, and we will talk to you on the After Dark show starting at 9 p.m. So join us there.
Have a great night.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Political Deep Dive. We air every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Papa Duke, PAPADUKE. You can follow our Facebook group, The Political Deep Dive Podcast, all one word. And on Mondays, our show will be uploaded to SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/thepoliticaldeepdive, all one word. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.